You don't see this slide, right?
I don't think they would complain even if it did. Okay, so I will say welcome. I'm glad you guys came. Evelyn was telling me earlier, she says, "Oh, I was so afraid people were going to stay home and look at it on Zoom." And I said, "But you know, there is something kind of valuable about having a collective experience." I just hope that collective experience doesn't jump over in the realm of COVID. You know, it is kind of going around again. Oh dear, now you're going to be worried. Oh, I'm sorry about that. One other person who said she did not want to tell you, uh, but I said it would be okay if I would tell you her message. She was telling me how much she's enjoying this particular class. The woman herself has taken multiple art classes, and she said this particular class has helped her look at art that she's never in ways that she has never considered. And I thought, well, you know what? That's pretty valuable. You never know what you're going to get out of these classes, folks. I'm telling you, I am not a fan of sci-fi or artificial intelligence. But yet, I've taken some and it's kind of opened my eyes. So I don't know. I just want to encourage you to keep on taking the classes. I also want to encourage you, if you have not purchased tickets for the Valentine Day French music. That's on February 17th. And please do so if you would like to come, because now we're worried about how many tables we have. It's always one thing or the other, I'll tell you. The second thing I would like to tell you is we are starting two new classes. One starts on Monday. This is the Stitchery class, dealing with an antique map of the United States. Those in the class are going to be able to kind of tell a story of what their lives have been like within the United States. So with Stitchery. That's the first class. And the second class is starting February the 22nd. I'm going to bring that up in the future. And it is the environmental ethics and global climate change. Oh, brother. But there it is. I mean, we got to face it sooner or later, right? Don't drink out of that plastic cup. Just kidding. Climate change and all. All right. With that, let's turn our attention to once again viewing some wonderful art from a wonderful instructor. Thanks a lot.
Who is this thing? Let me go see Jay. I think that thing is out there. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, it's working. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for braving the rain. Do you like rain? I love rain. It's magical. So thank you to Charlene for such an eloquent presentation. I really appreciate. In the past lectures, now that you've seen a few lectures, you can see the evolution of art. You know, it was the Middle Ages, a certain type of art. Then it becomes the Renaissance and the art changes. And then the last lecture, I showed you classical painting of the 19th century, right? Even though they were modern by the 19th century standard, they still were somehow conventional. You know, people painted a certain way in a very classical manner. But then came the end of the 19th century, and the world is about to change, the art world. So following centuries of classical painting, the the turn of the 20th century is going to reveal a totally different art world. The Impressionists were a group of artists. They were independent and they were based in Paris. and they became very prominent between 1870 and 1880. And at the beginning, they faced really harsh opposition from the conventional art community in France. Am I good? Yeah? So they were heavily criticized, and they became, now if you own any of those Impressionist paintings, you'd be a very wealthy person. So I'm going to just show you a list. I'm going to show you a succession of painters that are prior to the Impressionist, and post-Impressionist. Those are just words, you know. And as you get to today, people pretty much do whatever they want as an artist, right? So there's an evolution. So the first artist I want to introduce is Camille Pissarro, this gentleman. Right, this is a photograph of him. It was taken in 1909. And Pissarro is the oldest and the leader of the Impressionist group. The Impressionist was actually a group of artists who knew each other. He was born on the island of St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, but he died in Paris in 1903. So I'm going to show you his first painting.
Oh my God. These are great.
Fell down again. Is this better? It keeps falling down. Where's Jane? Get a haircut. It keeps falling down, Celine. Thank you. I'm not used to look like an alien, so that's why. Look at this painting. It actually could be very well Brittany. This is Camille Pissarro. This is Red Roof, the corner of a village in winter. It's at the Musée d'Orsay. It measures 26 inches wide. And after studying in France, Pissarro moved back to Venezuela, and then he went back to France, and he enrolled in the Beaux-Arts Academy of Arts in Paris, which I also attended shortly. So it looked like a simple painting, right? There's just houses, trees, you know, nothing exceptional in composition. Yet there is something to the painting that you go, oh wow, right? Isn't that beautiful? So this is plein air. So there's two type of painting. There is when you paint in just one setting, right? Or you put layers of paint. So he's a plein air painter, meaning he goes outside, he paints what he sees, and the painting is done on that day, right? Or maybe 2 or 3 days. This is The Harvest by Camille Pissarro. This painting is at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it's 22 inches wide. So Pissarro became friend with Monet and Cézanne. And this is extraordinary because myself as an artist, I struggled to find other artists, you know, that I can look up to, right? And yet all these people knew each other. Isn't that extraordinary? They all were friends, and all of them became famous. So Pissarro became friend with Monet, he became friend with Cézanne, and he agreed with the group about using natural setting and to. I think he expressed his dislike for grandeur and artificial settings. You know, so it's very natural. In 1863, almost all the group artwork was rejected by the Salon of Paris. You know, it was not accepted. And the Emperor of France, which was Napoleon III, instead decided to place the painting in a separate exhibit hall called the Salon of the Refused. This is another example of a painting that not much is happening. The colors don't seem extraordinary. And yet, when you look at it, it may remind you of places you've been. It's very real. It's very touching. Is it not? This is an orchard in bloom in the city of Louvciennes. It's painted in 1872. So Pissarro preferred to start and finish his painting outdoors, often at one sitting, which gave painting, you know, a more realistic feel. So did Van Gogh. Most of you, a lot of you, have gone to Paris, right? Doesn't this look like Paris? The Paris you've seen? This is le Rue, the street Saint-Honoré in the afternoon. It's an oil on canvas that measures 32 inches. So Pissarro studied under Courbet and Corot, which were artists we saw previously, and he was also a very close friend of Seurat and Signac. They're both pointillism artists, and I'll show them to you at the end of this lecture. I was in a hotel on the Rue Saint-Honoré a year ago, and it still looked like that. You know, there's a very Parisian building. This is Boulevard Montmartre, I think in winter. This measures 37 inches wide, and it's at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. So I don't think he did that in one setting because it's a pretty large painting. And the color is beautiful. And he painted the exact same scene in spring. See? Boom, boom. See how he's able with colors to interpret and convey the weather, the time of the year? That is a remarkable painting. And he painted this one. This is the avenue in the Parc Marly, which is near Paris, and it's a 22-inch painting. So that's Pissarro. I really enjoy Pissarro. The next artist I'm going to show you is one of my very favorite. It's Henri Rousseau. Yeah.
I have a question about how he used verticals in his city scenes.
How you use what?
Verticals.
Vertical.
The city scene seems to be cut in half because of that one light post.
Right.
Yeah, that was right. And then the painting you showed us before these two scenes, before, and then the one before that, also has, well, yes. Then you have this tree, and so it kind of divides my focus. And I'm wondering, was there a reason, or is there a reason for artists to do that? I've seen this quite often when there's been like a center, almost a division.
I could not answer about Monet, but certainly one line makes all the difference in composition. You know, so why he chose to do that, I don't know. But I can only tell you that you can look at the painting, but the sketch itself may be very complex. You know,
the last painting you did of this Pissarro was wonderful because the verticals were on either side, so it gives you a focus for the people in the middle.
It does. It does. No, that's a good thing for you to notice. Yeah. So Henri Rousseau, this is Henri Rousseau in his studio in 1907. He was really a post-impressionist. He's very different, but you know, impressionist is just a label. He was known as the custom officer, the douanier, because that's what he did for a living. He only started painting seriously in his early 40s. And by the age of 49 years old, he had retired from his job and he started working on his art full time. This is one of his early paintings. And you can see it's kind of naive, yeah? Yet there's just something that is absolutely beautiful in this painting. And Rousseau was born near Brittany in the town of Laval, and he actually also died in Paris in 1910. Is it not a pretty piece? So you can see that these techniques are evolved, but the ideas, you know, the composition, it's very magical, a little bit like Chagall to me is. So this is a carnival evening, and this is another early painting of his. This is a view of the Sèvres Bridge with balloons, planes, and dirigible. So balloons, planes, and dirigible were novelty, right? So it's pretty amazing that he's choosing to paint them. Isn't that magical? This is another simple painting, and yet it moves me. There's just, you know, a lot of time I run out of words, but it's like when you read poetry, you don't want somebody to, it doesn't have to be defined, right? You just want to feel it. So I'm just out of word. I end up saying, isn't it beautiful? Because it is. So this is a view of the Isle of St. Louis in Paris in the evening. I'm going to show you one of his very famous painting, Rousseau. This is, well, this is another, prior to that, this is another early painting. This is a landscape with 4 fishermen. You can see his talent already. So he regularly exhibited in the Salon of the Independent Salon, although his work was not prominently followed, you know, but little by little he grew a list of people that really liked his work. So this is now a very famous piece of Rousseau. This is the Snake Charmer. It's painted in 1907. It's an oil canvas that you can find at the Musée d'Orsay. So after his retirement from being a custom officer, he supplemented his small pension with part-time job. And one of the things, he played violin in the street. Isn't that pretty? Played violin in the street. Look at this painting. You see what an extraordinary step from all the paintings I've shown you before? You see what a shift, what a surreal imagination. So this is the Snake Charmer. Another great piece of his is this one. This is called The Dream. It's at the Museum of Modern Art. So Rousseau was ridiculed during his lifetime, and you can see why, right? People made fun of him. He was naive, he was silly, he was whatever. He was ridiculed by critics, but yet he came to be recognized as a self-taught genius whose work was of very high artistic quality. So this is the last great painting that Rousseau painting, and it's called The Dream. You see how the lion bring tension to the piece? Otherwise, just some woman in the forest, in the jungle. But the lion bring that element of tension. And it's a little bit like the lines you were speaking about, Charlene. Sometimes you're going to create line to bring some tension to a painting. Another great Impressionist painter is Alfred Sisley. Ever heard of Sisley? Most of you have. This is the house where he was born, Rue des Trois Bornes in Paris. He was born there in 1839, and he dedicated most of his life to painting in plein air. So he also went to the Beaux-Arts Academy, where he became friend with Renoir and Monet. Imagine that. It's a small group. They all absolutely know each other. I am jealous of that. They're just extraordinary. So you've heard of Renoir, of course, right? So this is Renoir painting of Sisley. So this is painted by Renoir. And this is the artist Alfred Sisley. It's a 32-inch tall painting. Rest along the stream. See, again, I don't know what to tell you about this piece. To me, it feels absolutely beautiful. I want to be there. I want to lay in the high grass and look at the river. This is the first time that you see artists doing just complete plein air painting, no studio work. So this is the Rest Along the Stream. It's an oil and canvas that is at the Musée d'Orsay, like many of the Impressionist painting. This is a small church in a small village. And you know what? He managed to make it look like Notre Dame de Paris. Doesn't it? It doesn't feel like a little village church, does it? His interpretation of light is incredible. This is a painting by a different artist called Basile, but the painting, this is the studio of Basile, and the painting in the studio, I don't know which is which, but in it are Manet, Monet, Renoir, and Sisley. Isn't that amazing? Beautiful composition. Wouldn't you like a group of friends like that? He also painted stunning plein air painting of rivers. This is the Loing, which is a small river at Saint-Mamès. It's a teeny town. It's an oil on canvas. It measures 26 inches wide. So while he was born from fairly wealthy parents, Sisley would live in poverty most of his life. And his paintings did not rise significantly in monetary value until after his death, because people were still buying artwork from the previous lecture I showed you. This was a big shift. You can see why critics were so harsh. It takes a long time to get used to new things. And this one, this is the first snow in a little town called Veneux-Nadon. It's also an oil on canvas measuring 26 inches. You see that greenish gray sky? So Impressionists like Sisley, they're able to render a mood, a feeling. That's more important to them than the exactness of what it is they see. I love this painting. This is a flood in Port Marly, another small town. It's also at the Musée d'Orsay. And this is a painting by Renoir. Again, this is Renoir, and this is a painting that he did of Alfred Sisley and his wife. She died a few months later after the painting. Imagine if you're Sisley and you have this painting from Renoir and he painted your wife who died a few months later. I did not write it down or did not see it, I don't know. But people died young and they died easily. An artist that everybody knows is Cézanne. Cézanne was born in Aix-en-Provence. You guys know where Aix-en-Provence is? My sister lives in Aix-en-Provence. She was a professor at the university there. So he was born there, and he is the spirit of Provence. People in Provence love Cézanne because his work is an interpretation of the region. So this is the card players. It's an oil on canvas measuring 29 inches wide. It's at the Courtauld Institute in London. You can see the radical difference in painting. It has almost a cubist interpretation, where he reduces forms to very simple geometric shapes. So Paul Cézanne was also ridiculed during his lifetime until he became famous, But his work laid the foundation of the transition from 19th century painting to the Impressionist and a new art reality. This is an early, let me go back, I don't know why it's small, but this is an early painting of Cézanne. This is a young girl at the piano. It's at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. In school, Cézanne was a friend with Émile Zola. You guys know who Émile Zola is? Zola is as famous as a writer as Victor Hugo in France. He's a writer who first spoke of the social inequities. You know, he defended people working in the mines. And anyway, here's this famous artist who get to know Zola. They grew up together. The coincidences are just amazing. So this is young girl at the piano. Look at this. You've seen a lot of still life, right? A lot of still life. I will not say they're boring, but they're very still, for sure. You know, this painting is not still. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of colors. It's powerfully painted with very quick brush strokes. It's not your regular still life, is it? You know, it's not, he's not painting what he sees with great realism or accuracy. He's painting what he feels, which is quite different. So this is still life with a curtain. And yeah, again, you can see how he he stylized everything. Everything is reduced to the most elementary shapes, like a square, a cube, a cone, or things like that. So actually, his work was a great influence on the Cubist movement. Yeah.
This is Cezanne, right?
Yes.
His work seems flatter to me than the other impressionists that you've shown so far. I don't see a lot of depth there, especially with the fabric.
Right. Well, because he is, I understand what you say. Because his work is not about depth. It's not about rendering depth and depth of view. It's very different. He tries to express everything in very simple geometric form, you know. But he brings a feeling to paintings that is unequaled.
Where do the titles of these paintings come from? Still life with a curtain. Well, I could make that up, but
You could make it up. Maybe I'm really good at giving title to my piece, but his piece is often just a description of what he painted. So maybe he was not great at titles. That's one big reproach, Cezanne, but I agree. Or maybe they had no name and some curator gave it a name because we don't, when you produce when you produce a lot of painting, maybe it's hard to keep track of what's what. Nowadays we have computers, we keep track of things. Maybe he did a bunch of paintings and, sold it to an art dealer. A great painting by Cezanne is this one. This is a very creative title. It's a woman with a coffee pot. So you see, one thing I will point out to you, you see how she's not standing straight? That enough to bring some tension in the painting. Does the word tension, you understand that word in the context of the painting, right? Look at this painting. You see how different it is from hundreds of paintings I've shown you of women. So this is at the Musée d'Orsay. It's 51 inches tall. And you can see even the figure is painted in a geometric fashion.
We don't see the coffee pot.
Just imagine, smell the coffee, don't? It's somewhere. It's somewhere. No, I was wrong. I was wrong actually. This one is the woman with the coffee pot. This one is Hortense Fiquet. This was the wife of Cézanne. So I got confused with images. So you can see why his exhibited painted attracted hilarity. People made fun of his work, So here's your coffee pot. So yeah, you're right. There is no depth, but people, a lot of artists don't show depth in their painting, but that does not distract from the painting. That was just not his purpose. Remember making coffee that way? So near, Aix-en-Provence is near Marseille in the south of France. This is a mountain called Sainte Victory. It's one of the most famous mountains in Provence. It has been painted by hundreds of artists, and it has been painted many, many times by Cézanne. This is at the Courtauld Institute in London, and you can see again how his landscape is very unique. It's divided into geometric planes. So this is the Mont Saint-Victoire. If any of you have gone to Provence, yeah, if you like Provence, you will see that this painting exemplify the feel that you have when you walk in Provence, doesn't it? This is the house with the cracked walls. It's painted in 1892. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And I will leave you with the last painting of Cézanne. Is one that I particularly like, is Annecy Lake. I try to show you, often I show you artists, but I try to show you work that you haven't necessarily seen. And because I'm an artist, I have I have a different view on artwork. But if you were the one picking artwork, you would pick something different. But I really enjoy this one. This is called Annecy Lake. Annecy Lake is in the French Alps. So, despite the increasing public recognition and financial success, because Cézanne became famous during his lifetime, he worked in increasing isolation, and he stayed away from, the center of the world, which was Paris for him, and he lived in Provence his entire life. Here's another artist you've never heard about. Have anybody heard of Monet? So you have to see that, our belief in artwork are brought about by what people tell you. Because people have shown you a lot of Impressionists, it seems that there's only the Impressionists in the world, right? People think that Mona Lisa is a great painting. It's an okay painting, right? I've seen hundreds of, greater painting. So I'm saying that because Monet is very famous, but he's really good, right? So this is Monet. This is a portrait by Renoir of Monet. He was born in 1840, so he was one of the founder of the Impressionist painting movement, and certainly a key precursor to modern painting. This is Monet, Woman in the Garden. It's painted in 1866. It's at the Musée d'Orsay. It's a very large painting because it measures close to 9 feet tall. This is painted in 1866. So Monet was raised in Normandy in the city of Le Havre, if you've ever heard of it. And he became interested in painting in the outdoors from a very early age. This is a woman in a garden. 1867, it's at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. You see how strong the contrast is? He's almost using pure black for the dark areas, which contrast greatly with the light. That's what you would see around noon during the day, or in the early afternoon. So this is a woman in a garden. It's painted in 1867. Woman with a parasol. It's actually Monet's wife that he's painting. Do you know how much ability you see how it's painted really quickly in very fast brushstroke, right? You see the ability it requires for you to be able to paint a face with and it still looks like a face with very quick motion like that. It's quite striking, isn't it? Look how he did the cloud. It's very disorganized, and yet it works, you know. He invented a new way of painting. I do love this one. This is called Garden at Saint-Adresse, some small town somewhere. Painted in 1866. This painting is also at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I particularly love the rendering of the waves and the contrast between the garden and the ocean. There's depth for you. This is a very quick painting, very unknown painting of Monet. This is a seascape of a storm. You guys like that one? Isn't that pretty? And one of my very favorite painting of Monet is this one. This is the House of the Fisherman. It's an oil on canvas that measures 31 inches. And, you know, Monet, like many artists, like me, certainly, we work a lot. And he wrote about one of the painting he did. He wrote, "I am working like never before in plein air, as I understand it. It's an old dream, one has always obsessed me, that I would like to master once and for all. But it is also difficult. I am working very hard, almost to the point of making myself ill." So being an artist, despite the rare accolades that you get, is a very lonely endeavor. You're alone at your studio, you don't have colleagues, and you keep working, you have this vision. Or isn't this painting absolutely beautiful? So this is the house of the fisherman, and this one is another flood. It's the house on the river Zaan in Holland. It's an oil and canvas that is at the Stadtholder Museum in La Hague. You see how refreshing this style of painting is compared to classical painting. The movement, a lot of the classical painting, they lack feeling. This is done in a very spontaneous way. So that spontaneity gives a lot more feeling to the painting. It's not so polished or stylized. This is an absolutely beautiful painting. It's called The Magpie. So remember what I was telling you about this woman had a black dress, and if I gave you black paint, it would look like, if I gave you white paint, do you do this? No, I couldn't. It feels like snow. It feels cold. So this is the Magpie. It's at the Musée d'Orsay. He painted a lot of painting of the Saint-Lazare station. Paris has 5 major train stations. Saint-Lazare is one of them. I have seen the original of this piece. And again, when you see the original of any of the pieces, you get a much greater response when you see that, as opposed to just an image. This is the Saint-Lazare station. But you guys want to see water lilies, right? That's what you want to see. So I'll give you a few because I'm nice. Here's a water lily. It's at the Toledo Museum of Art. In 1899, in the little town of Giverny, he began painting water lilies, and it became his obsession. He continuously worked for 20 years painting water lilies, and it's his last and most ambitious sequence of painting. So he painted it in different colors, in different ways. This painting is 7 feet wide. And I have this one. This one is an oil on canvas. So, his method of painting would be he would paint the same scene at different time of the day. So capturing light was essential to Monet. So when I read you this chapter where he was really tired from working so hard, you're going to understand why in this painting. This is Monet in his studio. I have done, huge painting, many murals and things like that. When you paint that scale, it's a totally different world of painting. Now it's physical. Instead of going like this, you're now working really hard on a big canvas. So it's very, very tiring. You see the size of that thing? And by now he appears to be quite older. So Monet became one of the most famous painters in the world. Renoir. Pierre-Auguste Renoir. This is not a painting by Renoir. This is a painting by Basile, another impressionist. He painted his friend. Renoir. So Renoir was born in 1841 in the town of Limoges. So that may be like an hour and a half south of Paris. And he was a leading painter of the Impressionist style. So he was a celebrator of woman beauty, for sure. And I don't think he was objectifying women. I think he just loved women and he loved painting their beauty. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is the theater box. It's an oil on canvas, the Courtauld Institute of Art in London. It's 50 inches tall, so a large painting. His father his name was Léonard Renoir. He was a tailor, and then his family moved to Paris, in search of a better financial prospect. But where he moved in Paris, he was not far from the Louvre. Do you see this? To paint this way, to the ability to paint like this in fairly fast brushstroke is simply extraordinary. The expression, the light, the movement. It feels like you're capturing people in a moment, like they're not sitting for you to paint them. You're just capturing them in that moment. This is the Swing by Renoir, also at the Musée d'Orsay. So you see the difference between chiaroscuro and the interpretation of dark and light by Rembrandt, and look at his interpretation of a sunbath afternoon. But isn't that, when you walk in a sunny day, isn't that what you actually see? Isn't that what you kind of perceive? The light feels like that. It's moving, So that's the thing about his artwork. You can feel the movement. It's not stiff. So afternoon, at the end of the 19th century, you're talking about great social changes. So workers would go to different venues on different rivers and spend the afternoon drinking and dancing. This is the Bal du Moulin de la Galette. Moulin is a windmill, the Galette windmill. It was a very popular place for people who gathered. This one is 7 inches wide. And he did another similar scene. This is the lunch of the boating party. Doesn't it feel real? Like, you guys have been around friends, you're drinking, you're eating. Doesn't it give you that feeling? The men are just like wearing some t-shirt. Nobody's posing for the painting. It's very, very natural. But it is something we can connect to, because these are people we know. These are people we've seen. These are situations where we've been. And this one is the dance at Bougival. Bougival was another place. It's at the Museum of Fine Art of London. A huge painting. It measures 7 feet tall. You see the movement? Not easy to convey. Renoir is extraordinary. You've seen this painting before? Many of you probably have. This is a nude woman in a landscape. It's at the Museum of the Orangerie in Paris. So you and I think it's beautiful. I mean, most of us, right? This is what a review of the Figaro newspaper in Paris wrote. The Figaro is a very conservative newspaper. He wrote this: try to explain to Monsieur Renoir that a woman's torso is not a mass of decomposing flesh with those purplish green stains that denote a state of complete putrefaction of a corpse. Right? But you have to see it, how they saw it in the time. This was shocking, absolutely shocking to them. And the last painting of Renoir I'm going to show you is this one. Doesn't that remind you of the Seine in Paris? Do you guys know the Olympics are going to be in Paris? And the opening ceremony, from what I heard, are supposed to be on the Seine River. That could be quite spectacular. So this is the Seine River. And actually, Renoir has a particularity. He was able during his lifetime to see his own work hanging in the Louvre. Not bad, huh? So this is the Pont Neuf, the New Bridge, 1872. It's the National Gallery of Art in London. And it's painted in 1872. A woman, yeah. You guys know who this is? This is Berthe Morisot. She was one of the few women artists, really, but one of the few women impressionists. She was actually married to Eugene Monet. She was married to the brother of, not Monet, Manet. Manet. I showed you to the last lecture of Manet. So she was born in the city of Bourges in 1841, and she was actually a very respected woman for her art. This is a painting by Manet of her. This is Manet, not Monet. Manet. It's Berthe Morisot with a bouquet of violets. It's an oil and canvas that is at the Musée d'Orsay. And this is Berthe Morisot. This is it's called the Green Umbrella. So because, she was a female artist, her paintings were often, described as full of feminine charm or some, which was kind of so you could say her work was not respected, certainly not as it should be. But she was definitely a great painter. She was a big part of the Impressionist movement, and she was friend with all of them. And she did write in her notebooks about her struggles, about being taken seriously as an artist. This is Berthe Morisot. It's called The Sisters, National Gallery of Art. It's a 32-inch wide painting. You see the different patterns of the clothes, the sofa. You feel a kinship between those two women, do you not? Because there's an air of softness and intimacy about the painting. And I'm going to show you one more piece of her, and then we can take a break, Jane? That'd be okay? So this is Girl on a Divan, on a Sofa, by Berthe Morisot. So we're going to take a few minute break. Yeah? I'm going to turn off my microphone and speak normally.
Did you guys switch seats? Or were you always in this formation? I thought Bruce was here and you were there. We're just melding.
Our kids say that.
Yeah, our kids, if they tell one, they assume the other one's gonna know.
Well,
Yeah.
I almost.
Are you sure you've always been sitting?
Yes, it's okay.
Honestly,
Yeah,
you were always on the end.
yeah.
That's weird.
So I'm thinking like last week. There for that one.
No, she was.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't look at the recordings.
Oh,
Did you get the gloss?
I did. Who knew?
Oh my God, it made me mad.
It's like, oh, you're not gonna use all those words,
Well,
I
and the
hope, because
thing
I'm not
is-
gonna understand a thing. Oh,
And
that
as
is,
soon as I tried to incorporate that, it's gonna change.
yeah. Oh,
And
I'm,
she wanted the class coordinator for everybody. I said, it's not like this whole class. She didn't. I said, it's not like this class is focused
right,
on
yeah, not
on
on
the
that
gay
particular,
community.
right.
That's just part
It's
of
just
the
part of the
whole
whole thing
family.
versus trying to differentiate all that. How would I ever do it? I'm gonna ask that.
But
So
you
tell
know what?
me.
Spelling woman,
Oh,
W-Y,
yeah, that's been around for years.
but that took up that page.
Oh, just that one thing.
She printed that out.
I didn't, I
As a
didn't,
report,
I
right?
didn't print that all out.
No, I don't either. because
That exceeds the vocabulary of.
Your life. That's my
Of
lexicon.
any of the subjects I've studied in life, the term doesn't match. Yeah, yeah, I know, early on, I got in trouble talking to a young person about, because I didn't know how to refer to
Oh,
things, and it's like, well, you
me
should know. It's like, well, how am I supposed to know?
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you?
And then
How
you get in
is it
trouble
for
for
you?
asking, that I should just somehow
Well, I
assume
think
and know.
using there
Uh-huh.
and how I was
Oh.
objecting and had an argument.
Yeah.
Until I
Yeah.
have to say this.
That's defining. Because I know during, when we were all on Zoom,
Yeah.
everything was actually part of the safety line. So now it's like, no, that does these things. You can volunteer.
And you still believe that that's race
Yeah.
around
Yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
without all those fortunes.
No, yeah, yeah. You can see the shift from the previous picture, which is still beautiful, but it's, yeah, it's a studio one.
Yeah.
This is done.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Let's say this, that.
Yeah, I think, well, it's a whole.
All right. There, so there was a reference to a.
Yeah.
I think that was always, done, but
It's just, it's been,
right, and that's correct, but I think it's always been. It's just that I had said that the plural matching more than one.
yeah, it's a they.
Yeah.
That possesses. They can explain why they want it.
Oh, we're talking pronouns.
Oh, you didn't see that? Did you get,
Continuous,
did you get that? Did you get the handout?
I think I've heard.
It's nine pages of terms.
I don't remember.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
they-
more confusing.
You,
Take a look at
you,
it.
oh, you know what? Bet you, it's just because.
I should really sit right in the middle. That a person could say they want a question and just pass around the microphone.
Good idea.
Hello again. The next painter I'm going to introduce you is, it should be bigger. I don't know why it's not bigger. You know who this is? This is Gauguin. It's a photograph of Gauguin playing the harmonium. Isn't that cool? To see someone beyond the image you may have of him because they became famous. So Eugène Henri Paul Gauguin was born in Paris on the 7th of June, 1848. So he was probably a post-impressionist artist. He was unappreciated for sure until after his death. And he's now recognized for his, experimental use of colors and stylizing. So I'm going to show you. So most of the work that Gauguin, he did two type of work. He did work in Brittany, although he painted a lot Brittany, where I'm from, and then he moved to Tahiti. So his painting completely changed, and he's very well known for his Tahiti painting. This is a self-portrait of Gauguin with Yellow Christ. So you can see not only it's much more spontaneous impressionism than classical painting, but it's also much more modern and daring. They're also showing you stuff that you could not show a century later. It would not have been proper to show Yellow Christ. The church would probably have killed you. For sure, you would have been in big trouble for painting. This would have been very shocking to people. To us, it isn't. So this is a Yellow Christ, 36 inches painting, and this is a self-portrait of Gauguin. So I kind of mixed the painting of his work. Toward the end of his life, this is another Yellow Christ. You see the woman of Brittany? Right? The next lecture is going to be about Brittany, so I'll show you more of his paintings of Brittany. So this is another Yellow Christ. And you can see the Brittany woman with the famous hats. Sacred Spring. So toward the end of his life, he spent 10 years in French Polynesia and Tahiti. And he painted people and landscapes, and these were very unique in the history of painting. He painted the beauty of Tahiti and Tahitian women. Riders on the Beach, all on canvas, 36 inches. You see how daring it is to paint the sand pink, right? You would not do that before. It's not yet for Fauvism, but people put big label, but of course some things look similar, but the colors could be seen as Fauvist. But you can see the warmth that emanates from this painting just because the beach is pink, not your regular sand, right? I get people, because I've taught art, I get people they ask me, what color should I paint the sky? And they look and go, so they're looking in the paint box for a blue sky, a blue color, that's the sky. And I tell them, your sky could be pink, it could be green, it can be whatever you want, right? But earlier, people would definitely not do that. So this is Riders on the Beach, made in 1902. And this is a painting, a very famous painting of Tahitian woman on the beach. It's at the Musée d'Orsay, 36 inches wide. I feel that he fell in love with these people. He loved them. And you can see that in how gentle and tender his paintings are. That I do not know. Or I don't recall, or I don't have an answer for you. Maybe he went there to visit and he fell in love with the place. Two Tahitian women. This painting is at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. There's a tenderness, a softness to his painting. Isn't that pretty? And this is a self-portrait he did of himself, and he gave it to Van Gogh. So here's the other incredible thing. Gauguin was a friend of Van Gogh. They were friends. Imagine that. So he was his friend, and actually, the brother of Van Gogh, Theo, sold a lot of Gauguin's work. I mean, a lot. He sold some of Gauguin's work, though he could not sell any of the work of his brother. So they were great, great friends. They had the same art dealer, but their relationship became very strained. On the evening of December 1898, according to Gauguin, Van Gogh confronted Gauguin with a straight razor. They drank heavily, so that did help. So Van Gogh came at Gauguin with a straight razor, and the same evening he cut his own ears. He wrapped it, Van Gogh did, he wrapped it into tissue paper, in a newspaper, and he brought it to a woman in a brothel with whom he had fallen in love, and he asked the woman to keep this subject carefully in remembrance of me. And Van Gogh was hospitalized the following day, and then the following day, Gauguin left Arles, but they almost lived together. That's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? That they knew each other, they drank together, they almost killed each other. And this is a painting of Gauguin. I mean, Gauguin painted this. This is him painting Van Gogh. This is Van Gogh painting sunflowers. Isn't that an amazing painting? Because you see it through the eyes of Gauguin. It's not a self-portrait of Van Gogh. This is how he viewed Van Gogh. So let's go to Van Gogh. I could tell you he's Dutch, and I could make it part of a Dutch lecture, but really he's considered as one of the post-impressionists. He lived all his life in France. So I'm going to include it in my lecture because it's my lecture. Right? It'd be hard to not have Van Gogh because they were all friends. So this is a self-portrait of Van Gogh. Oil on panel, this is at the Art Institute of Chicago. Vincent William Van Gogh was born in 1853, and he moved to Paris where he met Gauguin, and then eventually they moved together to Provence. Look at this painting. So when you speak of Gauguin, you often think of sunflowers. Look at this painting, right? It may seem, like a fairly naive painting, but the composition and the colors, there's something very striking on a very simple painting of sunflowers. And I have seen, Van Gogh in person, and you do feel this, it's powerful. His brushstrokes are absolutely unique. Van Gogh sold nothing during his lifetime. Imagine that. And he was considered a madman. He was considered a failure. His fame only came after his death, when the public started feeling that he was a misunderstood genius. Anybody has gone to Arles in Provence? Arles? You have? So you've seen this? I love this painting. This is a Yellow House by Van Gogh. It's painted in 1888. So his paintings, because if you see his earlier painting of the potato eaters and things like that, they're fairly dark. But when he moved to Provence, the light of Provence is very unique. You can see how his paintings are becoming brighter and brighter. This is the Yellow House, 1888. And this is his bedroom. You've seen this painting before? I taught three-dimensional perspective. Do you guys know about perspective? So this is simple, linear, one-point perspective, where all the lines, see all the lines of the floor, the bed, the paintings, they're all vanishing toward one point. That's simple one-point perspective. You can have 3 points of perspective. But it is an intimate view. of his life, isn't it? So this is his bedroom in Arles. And in the town of Arles, he completed roughly 200 different paintings, sometimes as many as 2 per day. So he was obsessed by his work, undoubtedly. I'm bound to show you very famous work, because this is Van Gogh. This one is the Night Cafe by Van Gogh. It's an oil on canvas that belonged to Yale University. And Van Gogh wrote this about the painting. He said, with the Night Cafe, I try to express the idea that the cafe is a place where one could ruin himself, go mad, or commit a crime. You see how the red and the green make you understand what he just wrote? Starry Night. You've seen Starry Night, right? So Van Gogh, when he did this painting, he wrote to his brother Theo. He did not see all these stars. He wrote to Theo, this morning I saw the countryside from my window, a long time before sunrise, with nothing but the morning stars, which look very big. Look at his interpretation. Is a completely novel way, as was Cézanne. They're reinventing how they're painting, how they're seeing things. So he definitely one of the most influential artists in the world. That's how the world, you have Einstein, you have people like Michael Jordan, you have people like Van Gogh, you have extraordinary talent that just come out. This is the church in Auvers-sur-Oise, which is a small town. It's painted in 1890. See, the tension is created by the curves. The walls are not exactly straight. And that creates some tension, it creates some interest. And it's moving. And it's painted fast. So you have a feeling of something very spontaneous and alive. This is a painting he did of his friend Eugene Boch, B-O-C-H. It's at the Musée d'Orsay. Wouldn't you be flattered if Van Gogh did a painting of you? This is La Berceuse. La Berceuse in French is a woman rocking a cradle for a baby. And the name of the lady is Augustine Alix Pellicot-Roulin. It's an oil painting that is at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The colors are just extraordinary. That olive green, the reds, it's powerful. I chose a very pretty piece for you, Roses by Van Gogh. Is that gorgeous? Yeah? It's stunning. That is a really beautiful painting. You guys agree with me? Yeah. And this is a view of Arles, which is again in the south of France. Here's an article I found. Why isn't it bigger? Oh well. This is an article I found. The article is about Van Gogh's death, and it's a small article in a teeny town called Auvers-sur-Oise. And the article speaks about his death, but they don't know him as famous Van Gogh. They just know him as this tramp that is in the town overnight. The article, let me translate it for you. It says Sunday, the 27th of July, a person named Van Gogh, age 37 years old, of Holland descent, artist paint, just passing by the town of Auvers, shot himself with a revolver in the field, and being only injured, he went back to his bedroom where he died the day after. Isn't that cool to see it in this perspective? This was the day after it happened in this little town, and it was just some guy passing by. So Van Gogh, suffered psychotic episodes and depressions. Of course, mental health was not, something that was recognized then. But he shot himself in the chest with a revolver, and he died the day after. So I'm going to leave you with one of his paintings that is not known, but I found it so beautiful. This is Almond Blossom by Van Gogh. Powerful, huh? So let's go to a very different painter, Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. Ever heard of him? Yeah? So he was actually a noble. He was a count. Count Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. He was born in the south of France in 1864, and he became very immersed in the Paris theater nightlife. And he created a lot of famous painting of the images of cabaret and places like that. So this is Le Moulin Rouge. You've ever seen a Moulin Rouge? It's in Montmartre in Paris. And it's a very famous French cabaret. This one is also called. So you can see his interest in nightlife. So he was not very afraid. He frequented brothels, he frequented prostitute, transvestite. He was a man of the night. And check this painting out. This is called Medical Inspection at the Rue des Moulins. So these prostitutes, these sex workers, are being medically inspected by doctors. It takes great courage or craziness to paint that, isn't it? Because you don't think if you paint that, you're going to sell it, right? But there is a love for his characters, for the people he knew, to be able to convey this. And this is his picture of a brothel in Rue des Moulins in Paris. Have you heard of Georges Seurat? Que Seurat, Seurat? No, Seurat. Georges Seurat, he was a pointillism artist. So this is a photograph of him in 1888. He was born in Paris in 1859, and he devised that technique, which is called pointillism. So this is him as a young man. This is the circus. It's an oil on canvas. It's 80 inches tall, so a very large painting. It's at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. Isn't this cool? This is called Circus Parade. Parades were staged outside the circus to entice passerby to go into the circus. So here's the thing about pointillism. It's not exactly what you think it is. What it does is, you've looked at pixel on a computer, right? So it aims to do the exact same thing. It's painted in teeny dots of different colors. And all those dots of different colors, they allow your eye to perceive, to blend the colors optically. Instead of painting the colors as they are, you take green from a tube and you paint green, they would paint all the colors that make up the constituent of that color. That's pointillism. This is called the models, oil on canvas, 98 inches wide, so very large painting. And you see the painting in the back? You see the background? Do you recognize that painting? Because you're going to see it in a little bit. This is Bathurst in Asnières, which is a town, and it's actually 10 feet wide. But I've seen sketches of Seurat. He did hundreds and hundreds of sketches, you know, to render this silhouette without any details. And this is the painting all of you know, this painting. This is a Sunday afternoon on the Grand Jatte Island in Paris. It took Seurat 2 years, sorry, to complete this 10-foot painting. Much of the time he spent time in the park sketching people. So he's done about 60 different studies for this painting. Here's a painter you've probably never heard about. His name is Hippolyte Petitjean. It's a woman sitting. It's at the Musée d'Orsay, and it is this gentleman was a post-impressionist painter. He was born in 1854, and he painted also Pointillism, and he was influenced by Signac. So this is a painting of his future wife, Claire Chardon. And the other painting I have by him is this painting. This is a woman bathing, and the artist is Hippolyte Petitjean. So let's go to Paul Signac. Signac was another famous Pointillist artist. This is Signac in 1883 when he was a young man. He was born in Paris on the 11th of November in 1863. And he met Monet and he met Seurat. Imagine. This is Snow, Boulevard de Clichy in Paris. It's at the Minneapolis Museum of Art. It's an oil and canvas like most of the paintings I've shown you today. And this is his painting of Cassis. Cassis is a famous little town on the French Riviera. It's an oil and canvas, so the Mediterranean coast was a major theme in the painting of Signac. He left the capital, Paris, every summer. He stayed in the south of France near Saint-Tropez, where he bought a house. And this is his painting of a gulf nearby, which is called the Gulf of Juan. It's at the Worcester Museum of Art. Very different style of painting. This is now Pointillism. So it's no longer Impressionist, although it has Impressionist feeling to it. And in 1886, he went to Paris, and guess who he met? He met Van Gogh. I mean, the coincidences are bewildering. He met Van Gogh, and the two of them in 1887, they went out regularly, they drank, they painted in plein air, they painted landscapes and cafe together. Although you can see the styles are incredibly different. This is the port of Saint-Quay-Portrieux in Brittany. And I tell you that because I went to boarding school in that little town for 4 years. I went to a Jesuit boarding school. But look what became of me. I got over it. But this is a very familiar place because I spent years of my childhood there. But look at the rendering of the ocean. This painting looks simple, but this is a painting that may take a year to do in little teeny dots. I'm going to now show you Edouard Vuillard, one of my favorite painters. And now you can see maybe something that reminds you of the Fauviste. This is Edouard Vuillard, totally different style. He was a French painter and a printmaker. And he was a prominent member of a group of painters called the Nabis. You know, the Nabis created painting of pure colors, and they were kind of influenced by Japanese prints. So this is a woman in a striped dress. It's at the National Gallery of Art in London. Grand interior with 6 people. You see how the texture become the main theme of his work. Incredible texture, incredible colors. Those colors are heartwarming, are they not? I'm going to show you 2 paintings. They were commissioned by a cardiologist in Paris. This is painted in 1896, and it's 2 different paintings of people in an interior setting. That's the first one, and this is the second one. And those patterns beautiful? This is the morning concert by Edouard Vuillard. Now check this painting. The title is Knitting Woman in a Pink Dress. Do you know how difficult it is to render? All of us can feel she's knitting, right? But you're not seeing any knitting. You're not seeing the, how do you call those? You don't see the needles. You don't. But her position is familiar as somebody that is knitting, isn't it? So this is woman knitting in a pink dress. It's a knoll on cardboard that is 25 inches. This is a garden at the city of Vaucresson. It's also at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. And the last painting of his, I'm going to show you, I find it absolutely incredible. This is interior. This is his mother and his sister. You see how his sister is now kind of part of the wall, right? So anyway, this is the Nabis group. They were post-impressionist painter, and they played an important part from impressionist to abstract art. Pierre Bonnard, this is a different painter, very different. He was born in 1867, and he was a French painter and an illustrator, and he was very well known for the very stylized quality of his painting and the bold use of colors. And his work was influenced by the work of Gauguin. Oop. This is a Yves Saint Laurent fashion show in front of 3 Bonnard paintings. Is that wild? Isn't that cool? See, when I show you this, right, you go, that's okay. But if you imagine it framed on a wall, it's a very different feeling. Isn't that cool to see the Saint Laurent interpretation of the clothes and compared to the incredible texture of his paintings? Another unusual artist, his name is Félix Vallotton. This is called The Walls. And he was the artist, Vallotton was born in 1865, and the painting is 20 inches tall. And he also painted this. This is called the Red Bedroom. It's a tempera on cardboard. If for those of you who don't know, tempera, instead of using water like in watercolor or oil like in oil paint, you use the egg yolk as a binder. After all the great impressionists, I'm showing you painters of that era that are not as famous. I mean, this one people know, but not as well. This is Maurice Denis. He was born in 1870. He died in 1943. He was a decorative artist, but he was a very important painter associated with the Nabis. This is a September evening. It's an oil on canvas that is at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. This is his painting. It's called Shuttlecock Game. Shuttlecock for, it actually really means badminton. And it's painted in 1900. It's at the Musée d'Orsay. Absolutely beautiful painting. This one is called The Fitting. You see, again, it takes quite, here you're not, like for the woman knitting, he's, there's no detail, it's not realistic, but it conveys exactly that, the fitting of a woman dress. And the last painting of his I will show you is this one. I know I showed you this one. It disappeared. Okay, we pass it. An artist called Armand Guillaumin. I just have one painting of his. It's this one. It's the view of the Seine River. It's at the Houston Museum of Fine Art. And I will finish my lecture with a woman. Yeah. Eva Gonzalez. She's a French artist with a Spanish name, but this is By the Water. It's painted in 1880. It's 14 inches wide, so very, very small painting. But it does remind me of the work of Berthe Morisot. She was a French Impressionist. She was born in Paris in 1849. She was a student of Manet. She died in childbirth at the age of 34 years old. So I'm going to leave you with the one last painting. Just remember, she died at 34 years old, and that's all we have left of her. This is a nanny and a child in a park in Paris. It's at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. So there's my lecture on French Impressionists. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. So you can see through the 4 lectures I've shown you, there were medieval, there were Renaissance, there were classical painter. You see how different this is? And after that, you have modern art, you have abstract cubism, whatever, right? You can see clearly the loosening of the stroke, the different times that, people thought differently, the subjects are no longer religious. You can see the evolution of society. So do you guys have questions?
Actually, I have a question. How long did pointillism actually, how long was it in favor? Popular or?
A very short time, but still people are still doing work pointillism, So I would say a short time with Seurat and Signac. I don't think it lasted very long. I don't think many artists, it's a very painstaking work, pointillism. Painting takes years because you're going like little dots. You're not going like this. That takes a lot of energy. Yeah. Go ahead.
Did these painters that you've shown us, did they rise to the top from a bunch of people painting at that time? Or were there just people painting who were schooled in paintings, were seeing what was there? I mean, were there a lot more painters then, and these are the cream of the crop, is the point?
Well, no, of course there was a lot more painters, and most of them were really bad, right? No, they are. I mean, you guys, people always think the good time were before, Remember, people always think that when they grew up, In reality, it's not true. You remember Mozart, you remember Beethoven, because you've never been told of the thousands of terrible musicians, right? Only the very, very few are remembered. Same thing for writers. With the Impression, it's a little bit different because it's a small group where just about every member rose to prominence. So it's a very unique group. Imagine all these people knew each other, they frequented each other, and most of them were poor, and they drank together. Little did they know that one day their work would become very famous. So it is quite an extraordinary moment in time in the art world. Yeah. Anybody else? I want to ask you, I have a question for you. I want to ask you, how did I have two questions. You can answer whichever question. I want to ask you, how did this lecture, the Impressionism, made you feel, or any of the painting? And also, how you perceive the evolution of art in France from the medieval time that I showed you. So I'd love to hear what you have to share about that.
Well, when you go to France and go to the museums, you see these guys. They're really prominent. So this lecture is really different from the others for me.
How is it different?
I've the art is familiar,
Mhm.
and the other art is not so familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can see why people like the Impressionist. It was just very exciting time. It was new, it was free, it was loose, you know. But it's just one great period of history. Yeah. Go ahead, Medea.
What I've really seen so far that I never quite got it before is that art through the ages has become more accessible to the average human being, both in terms of the subject matter going from only religious figures and kings and rich people down to those everyday folks on the having fun on a Sunday afternoon. So the subject matter has been democratized or popularized, and so has the ability to see it.
So as yeah, you're
And I
right.
mean, we're sitting here
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all these years later, seeing beautiful images. It's not, we're not in the same room with the painting, but this is a pretty nice way to see paintings.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's like the printing press of Gutenberg. You know, you had Monk reproducing, you know, illumination parchment. And then a year after his invention, they had printed 20 million books, right? So we have now where everything is digitalized. And I'm able to show you just incredible, you know, high resolution images. That did not exist. If I had done this lecture 15 years ago, I would show you black and white slides. Imagine, have you ever seen all those books, those field guides? It's all black and white picture. And now you're seeing this incredible thing.
I think this was also a time of spread of ideas. The thing that impressed me when I went to Giverny to Monet's house was that on his walls were all Japanese block prints. And so the spread of ideas influenced the way that they painted. And I also read that plein air got started because there was, for the first time, they had paints in
Tubes.
tubes. Yeah.
Right, they had painting tubes, and that was a really, really big deal. Before, people painted on wood panel, and I have painted on wood panels, and you know, if you do a 10-foot piece, it weighs, you need 4 people to move it, you know. So the invention of canvas, the invention of oil paint, and the invention of tubes where you could put the paint. I mean, yeah, you know, and also what you say is true. You know, there's an opening to, there's an accessibility that you did not have before. You know, it did not exist. Now we're aware of what's happening in different part of the world, so it becomes much less chauvinistic. You know, it opens. Yeah, thank you.
I had a question. I had a question about one of the self-portraits of Gauguin.
Yeah.
The one that was the last one you showed us, he had an insert in the upper right-hand corner of another man, a profile, and that definitely was not him. I wondered who that was.
May have been Gauguin.
That one. There.
I don't know, what does it say? It says Les Miserables, the Victor Hugo.
But look at the nose. It's so different. The bridge of the
Yeah.
nose.
I mean, to the left, it's Gauguin. I don't know who the other guy is. Yeah.
Les Miserables.
I don't know why.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's written. I think it's Vincent van Gogh, but I don't see the bottom of the painting, and I don't think that he ever thought this painting would be shown here one
Maybe
day.
that is
You
Vincent
know,
van Gogh.
he didn't. Is there a painting that particularly moved you guys? The water lilies? Yeah,
Mm.
go ahead.
I would like to know the proper spelling of the nabis. so that-
Nabi
Nabi.
with an
Okay.
S, because there were many little nabbies. Nabbies, yeah. There's a lot of, but you know, they're just names. Some to make things easier, people group into, you know. The other thing, I thought of one thing I wanted to tell you. One of the reasons I don't tell you how I want you to perceive this painting, I just want you to enjoy them and feel whatever you feel, right? Is because when you read about people doing an analysis of other artwork, they make it up. They tell you, his primary vision, blah, blah, blah. They have no idea what you felt. When I do paintings, people look at, for example, the surreal landscape I'll do, and they'll go, are those breasts? Like, no, they're mountains, or is it, they go, this is phallic. Is this a dream? People make up all kind of stuff, but it rarely has anything to do with reality. The same way that when you meet people the first time, you make up all kind of things about them. You think she's not nice, she's an accountant, right? She's whatever. You're making it up. And then you meet them, you go, they're not at all who you, right? So the intellectual approach to artwork has been very negative because it has taken people away from the appreciation of work. And art galleries contribute to that. They're often very snobby, very minimalist. It appears to be, but these people are not artists. They're art sellers, they're merchant, So I think it's good to have a more simplistic way to look at art, be my guess.
You asked, was there anything that particularly moved us? And I was so happy that you started out with Pissarro
I love
and
Pissarro.
did several of his paintings. He's my favorite.
Oh, really?
And I don't know, but as I don't know why, but when I first saw his work, I was drawn to it. And I said, that's my guy. And I mean, I
Yeah,
even waded
yeah.
through a biography of his of 500 pages or whatever. But I can point to one thing that I really like about him, like stop there. I really like that palette.
Yeah, Pissarro is absolutely wonderful. He was considered the grandfather of Impressionism. And all the artists, Monet, Van Gogh, Cézanne, all saw him as a father figure. He was this much older man. What do you think, Evelyn? You have a microphone in your hand. You might as well say something.
I love the almonds, the almond
Oh, the
branch
almond
from
blossom
the
of Van Gogh.
yeah.
Oh, man, that is so pretty.
There were so many, but that one just
Can you
really.
believe how many pieces I've shown you? You forget, right? Where's Van Gogh? He's coming. There, right after Gauguin. The roses. This
That one.
is that beautiful?
I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure he was a great man. Anybody else has something? You please
I
go ahead.
have a mural of that in my kitchen.
You do. Wow. That's a nice choice. How big is the piece in your kitchen?
I don't know, 4 feet by 5 feet.
Yeah, I love this painting, and his painting of roses is absolutely gorgeous. Where are the roses?
It went past
Did I
them.
pass it?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, uh.
There.
Is that gorgeous? Right?
I wanted to say that for me, you projected those and I will never see them and I'll never see them like that. But they really, I was able to take them in much better because of the largeness and your commentary, which was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The next lecture, I'm going to please go ahead. Yeah,
Coming.
she wants to say something.
Wait. Here you go.
I used to live about very close by to the museum that had the luncheon of the boating party. And
Oh.
I mean, every once in a while, I would just go and stare at that painting. It's huge.
It's
I mean,
huge.
it's very, very large. What we saw was, I think, only about maybe a third of it. And you could,
You're talking about Renoir, right?
yeah, uh-huh.
Who is Renoir? Oh, he's
There it
Renoir.
is. There it is. Yeah.
This one?
Go back and, well, I think they're
This
together.
three other. You're saying
Yeah.
it's much bigger than that?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Do you know how difficult it is to paint that? You know,
Oh,
that dabbling
yeah.
light and shadow. It looks easy. It looks effortless, you know, but like you see a great dancer, you don't see the effort. You think it's a natural thing for him to do. But, you know, these are highly trained artists. And this is absolutely beautifully painted.
I just want to say I haven't been exposed to the paintings like many of the people here have. And I just find the skill and talent on these paintings to be incomprehensible. When I look at a painting like that, I can't comprehend how anybody can do that. I just can't do that.
I know. That's why, you know, I don't tell you too much about the painting. It's like poetry. You know, the last thing you want when you read a poem is somebody telling you why you should like it. You know, look at this one. You know, it's because it's undefined. It doesn't need to be defined. I think it's the same thing for, you know, I'm a very spiritual person. You know, there's a beauty and a magic to spirituality. But if you give me a Bible that tells you exactly how it happened, how it's going to end, it becomes stiff. You know, it loses that magical quality. And that magical quality of the painting is all I want for you to see. So the next lecture, the next two lectures are going to be very different because there's going to be journeys that I took in France. You'll see some art, of course, but the journeys that I took in Brittany, where I'm from. And the last one is even greater. It's the center of France. So you'll see things you've rarely seen, right? So I'm going to take you to two regions. You'll see artwork, but you'll see many other things. Yeah. So it'll be your way to France without buying a ticket. Yeah.
Christian, before you go, this is Carrie from Zoom.
Who's talking?
Can you hear me? I'm on Zoom.
Yes, we can.
It's
My
God.
name,
God is speaking.
God.
It's like, whoa.
I feel almost like the Wizard of Oz. Anyway, say right from the very first image you showed of Pizarro to the last image, this has been a collection like each day has been wonderful collections. Today you just blew my socks off. That first image was just fantastic. Sicily's, the river. I loved many of these. Some of these were just so outstanding. The river, Monet's Garden in the Ocean, House of a Fisherman, which looks just like Bodega Bay, the Magpie, and then going to Van Gogh, a view of the Arles. This was just a wonderful day, and I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Carrie. It's nice to hear your voice. You know what's really funny is the guy is talking and we're all looking at that little insert that says his name as if he's there, but he isn't there. He's somewhere at home, you know. I can tell you one last thing is when I go to art museums, and I've gone to many art museums, I can only stay so long because after an hour I get saturated, but I can't wait to get home and create artwork.
Oh,
you know,
very
so
good.
maybe it makes you want to take a walk, makes you want to ride, but you feel inspired, you know, by something that is beyond, you know, the human condition. There's something greater, you know, and the art shows that. So thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Some of those images definitely do that to a person, just
Thank
to be
you,
able
Carrie.
to see it. Yes. Thank you.
How are you doing? How was it, Cindy?
Good.
Oh, I better turn it before I say